Good morning once again. First, I'd like to share my experience when, during the process of crafting the ATSP. With the Philippines as lead country coordinator, surveys were conducted with the help of ADB and the ASEAN Secretariat to really get to the heart of the matter of tourism development in the region, to understand the priorities of the ASEAN member states. And what we found was a commonality in terms of priorities. First, the pillar on resilience could not be more relevant now than ever because of the recent climate-related events that have plagued our region and has caused major devastation. Cebu, for example, recently experienced heartbreaking floods as well as super typhoons, not to mention a series of earthquakes. With that, the effort of the Philippine government has really been to fortify the resilience of our destinations. First and foremost, and apart from implementing our national ecotourism strategy, is to safeguard the livelihood of those that depend on the tourism industry. You have to understand that in the Philippines, tourism is an engine of economic growth with 16.4 million workers employed in the formal and informal sector in various services and tourism, accounting for around 34% of our entire national employment. With that, we have sought to empower our tourism workers, first by providing continuous skills enhancement and development through our Filipino brand of service excellence, and this also goes to the empowerment of our tourism stakeholders. Thus far, we have trained over 444,000 Filipinos since 2022. In addition to that, we continue to provide skills, specific tourism skills, in destinations across the country. Anywhere from tour guiding, dive boat operations, as well as culinaria or gastronomy, and to include as well retail in tourism. On this note, we have trained over 144,000 tourism workers already. And when that livelihood is disrupted because of calamities and disruptions, we have also partnered first with our Department of Social Welfare and Development, where the moment calamity strikes, government comes in to provide emergency cash assistance as well as family food packs to affected tourism workers to ensure that notwithstanding the disruptions, that sources of income can and will continue. On another note, one of the greatest challenges that the Philippines faces is the fact that it is almost entirely dependent on air travel as far as access to the country. It's a 99.9% dependency considering the archipelagic nature of our nation. And therefore, we are advocating that there should be accessible and seamless travel. And on that note, we have been proponents of visa liberalization. Very recently, our president, through the Department of Foreign Affairs, declared that India is now visa-free coming to the Philippines, as well as China and Taiwan. And we have also recently launched, by way of a presidential executive order, a digital nomad visa for the Philippines. We also seek to work with our fellow member ASEAN nations in terms of improving regional transport within the ASEAN region, knowing that we can support each other as far as tourism flows if we focus on routes development. We're very pleased that in 2025 alone, 12 new international flights started for Cebu, and these include from some of our ASEAN member states such as Vietnam and Malaysia. In terms of digitalization, we find that the introduction of digitalization across our tourism hemisphere is of absolute importance, which is why we have worked very closely with the private sector to ink partnerships to introduce that as far as fortifying the businesses of our traditional tourism stakeholders. We've inked partnerships, for example, with Klook, Visa, MasterCard, and very soon with Agoda to ensure continuous promotion and accessibility for tourism while providing opportunities for our tourism stakeholders to improve in terms of finance and digitalization in their businesses. we recognize as well that there is a need to ensure diversification. One of the lessons that we have learned from the pandemic is that a high dependency on one particular market or one particular tourism product can be devastating when there are upheavals that happen in any of these aspects. And therefore, the Philippines has been quite aggressive, first in terms of diversifying its tourism product. It is a well-known fact that the Philippines is home to some of the best beaches and diving in the world. Not very far from here, you can swim with the whale sharks or sardines, 1 million of them in one go, and many other experiences. And yet, it is increasingly clear that if we do not provide other opportunities for our tourists and do not unburden our destinations with over-tourism, then it can lead to threats to the sustainability of these destinations, which is why we launched the Philippine Experience Program. The Philippine Experience Program seeks to provide emerging destinations with opportunities to present other aspects of their tourism value chain. Not just the natural landscape, but also our heritage, our culture, our traditions, the indigenous people's traditions that pervade our country, as well as our very delicious gastronomy, which I hope you've all enjoyed since your stay here. Also, with this diversification, we have found that there is much higher spending now compared to a few years ago as far as tourists coming into the country. It is based on data that the average tourist that comes into the Philippines spends around 2,073 US dollars, one of the highest in the region. And this tourist stays up to 11 nights in the country. And this therefore translates to more income and more opportunities for tourism stakeholders to earn. Finally, as far as sustainability is concerned, this pervades the heart and soul of tourism development in the country, for it is the very principle that dictates all of our priority programs under the National Tourism Development Plan. And so whether it is fortifying tourism infrastructure and our accommodation sector by revising our national accommodation standards to specifically include green and sustainable criteria before you can be star rated, or by providing solar energy, for example, in the many tourist-stressed areas that we have built across the Philippines, or providing capital funding to our local government units that propose sustainable, inclusive, and resilient tourism. By and by, we are trying to inject this, not just the theory of sustainable tourism, but sustainable tourism as a way of life in our communities. And so we're very eager to work with our fellow ASEAN member nations to ensure that the ASEAN Tourism Strategic Plan comes into fruition and provides added benefits to the lives of the people in our communities.
Thank you very much.